On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank. Thank you for tuning in right on time for your weekly rendezvous with the African Union Journal. Women's football in Africa is experiencing significant growth with notable advances on the continent. But over the years, women's football has remained patchy and underdeveloped. How can the African Union and the African Football Confederation better support these women in the sports industry? Ladies and gentlemen, stay with us for enticing reports and analysis on possible solutions to this loophole. In 2025, South Africa strengthened its policy in favor of women's sport with targeted investment and a structuring legal framework. This model is an invitation to other African countries to institutionalize equality on the pitch by focusing on professionalization and equitable access to resources. Catherine Gombe sheds more light on the stakes.
In 2025, the South African government has earmarked 250 million rand to integrate sport into the school curriculum, in addition to the 143 million earmarked for the promotion of sport, to the 40 million for community projects, and the 78 million for equipping schools and clubs. This funding reinforces the framework adopted in December 2024, guaranteeing a legal basis for equality in sport.
When I look at 2023, and if I was someone new to women's sport, I would think, what a lucky packet year for women's sport, and women in sport are so fortunate. And then I speak to the likes of G Sport Hall of Fame inductee Blanche Moyler, who's been doing this for 40 years, and she's like, it's about time. It's about time we do this for the youth. So I think it's been a fantastic year. The challenge now with Siwe is how do we build momentum on the successes gained and ensure that in the next couple of years, when more World Cups are hosted in this country, that it's fully commercialized and that women's sport does turn fully professional.
In women's rugby, the South African Rugby Union is launching the Women's Super League in 2025 with 150 professional players, following the example set by the Bulls Daisies, who have signed 35. In football, the Hollywood Bets Super League is expanding to 16 teams and will be broadcast on the South African Broadcasting Corporation. This league, supported by the state, ensures the structuring and visibility of talent.
The story of women's sports in South Africa is a story of resilience. It's a story of battles fought on and off the field. And it's a story of gallant women who have had to prove themselves over and over again, who are having to fight for resources, to get vitamins, to get medical care. They're having to fight for these resources. And actually, the respect they deserve requires us to do more.
However, this dynamic is still rare on the continent. Nigeria, the three-time reigning African champion, does not have yet a law on equality in sport. In Côte d'Ivoire, women's clubs suffer from a lack of infrastructure, and in Senegal, training efforts are not yet accompanied by consistent financial support. Morocco is making progress, but there are still marked differences between regions.
We need to choose to invest in the future of women athletes. We've got to provide them with opportunities and the resources they need, and they really so deserve. We need to challenge the status quo. We've got to push the boundaries. We've got to do more and demand more for ourselves. Many of us here have daughters. Many of us have children who are girls who will not be funded unless the status quo changes.
Globally, women's sport generated $2.35 billion in 2025, including $820 million for football. In Africa, women's basketball has more than 450,000 registered licenses. In March 2025, a public-private forum in South Africa led to a 22% increase in the funding for netball. These figures show that a clear political commitment can transform women's sport into a lever for economic and social development.
Be it in athletics, football, or even basketball, Africa sports women are showing through their success in international competitions just how much sport can help to break down barriers and free women from the obstacles that hold them back. Although significant progress has been made, experts believe that investment in women's sports is still too low to ensure the equitable and sustainable development of women's sports in Africa, particularly at the local level. Details with Katrin Gambay.
African women's sport is booming, driven by world-class athletes who are breaking down barriers. Their successes and triumphs have opened doors for women wishing to pursue a career in sport and have inspired young girls and boys to follow them as role models. A case in point is the African Women's Football Cup of Nations held in Morocco in July 2025, which is showcasing the determination and experience of teams such as South Africa's Banyana Banyana and Nigeria's Super Falcons. This competition provides a continental stage for female players boosting interest in women's football on the continent.
I'd like to say thank you to Kes Naidu, to Momentum, for always raising the profile of women in sport. Let's continue to raise the profile. I remember our former Miss Universe used to say, actually said, that space there doesn't have a name on. So to all the ladies, go up and grab that space, because what is the worst thing that can happen? You can fail, but you cannot succeed without any failures. Thank you and God bless.
Yet, the day-on-day reality for African sportswomen is very different from that of their male counterparts or even their compatriots playing abroad. In Africa, women's team and sportswomen are cruelly lacking in funding and infrastructure, a situation that tends to dampen the enthusiasm of new generations. According to UN Women's statistics, only 20% of women are involved in team sports and 50% operate on an individual basis. In Kenya, for example, long-distance running teams often come up against a lack of financial support. One example is the number of medals won by Kenyan women at Paris 2024. Of the 11 medals won in total, 7 were won by women, thanks in particular to Beatrice Chebet and Faith Kipyegon, two-time record winners in the 1,500 meters and the 5,000 meters.
I really appreciate you guys for making us who we are. No matter any challenges we go through, we make sure that we carry our flag in a higher position that we can do on our side. But we hope the ministry will help us be on top there with the best of the world. So thank you so much.
Experts believe that to make sport more inclusive, Africa must fully exploit the potential of women's sport. The Confederation of African Football has taken a number of steps in this direction by raising the profile of the CAN Feminine and encouraging national federations to set up women's league, as well as encouraging clubs taking part in the inter-club competitions to have women's sections.
As ladies, we don't limit ourselves. As Faith alisema. So Faith alikuwa akienda ku dare to try for mile. Me myself, I get motivated because she have been a close friend to me. And I say it's not an easy thing. Mile was not an easy thing, but she say I'm going and I'm going to.
The 2026 Dakar Youth Olympic Games will be the first Olympic event to be held on the African continent, a unique opportunity to highlight women's sport in Africa, offering a platform for visibility and recognition for African athletes.
From Guinea to Madagascar, initiatives are emerging to make African minerals more than just a commercial asset. How can we move from raw exploitation to a processing economy that serves the people? Sarah Yemele reports from the heart of the debate of strategic importance for the continent's future.
At the 17th BRICS Leaders Summit held in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, South African President Cyril Ramaphosa made a strong appeal for equitable multilateralism and inclusive economic growth centered on technology at the service of people. For him, this international meeting represents an essential strategic platform for rethinking the use of natural resources with a view of stimulating sustainable economic development shared by the member nations.
We must now ensure that value add becomes the order of the day, that the critical minerals that we have should be beneficiated, and we should no longer be exporting rock, soil, and dust to developed economy countries, but we should now add value and export made-up products from these critical minerals.
The African continent, with around 30% of the world's reserve in the extractive industry, is at a decisive crossroad. This wealth, often perceived as a major asset, now requires a profound transformation based on economic diversification and industrialization. The challenge is clear: to move away from dependence on raw materials and build more resilient economies capable of generating added value and sustainable employment.
Mining, because of its relatively better fundamentals, can finance infrastructure. And the key is to ensure that that infrastructure is not there only to serve mining, but it can be used to open up opportunities in other sectors of the economy.
In a context marked by numerous challenges such as the lack of infrastructure and the shortage of qualified skills, the African extractive sector also harbors vast opportunities. In his farewell address on July 3, 2025, the outgoing Deputy Executive Secretary of the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa stressed that the implementation of the African Continental Free Trade Area opens a new era for boosting this sector and strengthening its integration into regional value chains.
If we do not change the nature, the structural nature of our industry, then we'll be forever dependent on the vagaries of that sector.
Transforming the extractive sector is a complex task, but it remains an essential lever for ensuring sustainable development and the economic sovereignty of African countries. By creating jobs and securing income, the social impact is tangible. In Madagascar, the mining sector employs more than 500,000 people, while in Guinea, the world's leading exporter of bauxite, natural resources are becoming a key driver for economic growth and regional integration.
This week's regional news feature by Sarah Yemele looks at following the agreement on the Nile Dam. Egypt demands a recent commitment from Ethiopia. In East Africa, Uganda unilaterally reopens Bunagana crossing. Electoral transparency with former presidents pledge support for Cote d'Ivoire electoral process.
Faced with the prospect of the Grand Ethiopian Renaissance Dam officially opening in September 2025, Egypt is demanding a written commitment from Ethiopia to guarantee that no harm will be done to its right to the Nile waters. This demand was withdrawn by Ethiopian Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouly at the BRICS summit in Rio, Brazil. Despite several rounds of negotiations under the auspices of the African Union and international mediation, no legally binding agreement on the long-term management of the Nile waters has yet been reached between the three countries. This dam, costing over $4 billion, located on the Blue Nile near the Sudanese borders, began producing electricity in 2022. On July 3, 2025, Ugandan authorities officially reopened the Bunagana land border post, which falls under the jurisdiction of Kisokoro district in the Rutshuru territory of North Kivu. This reopening took place in the absence of Congolese officials, even though the region has been under the control of AFC M23 rebels group since June 13, 2022. According to reports by the United Nations group of experts on the DRC, analyzed in December 2022, taxes imposed by the M23 in Bunagana and Kitagoma contributed to the financing of its military operations. A few months before the next presidential elections in Cote d'Ivoire, several former African presidents have made a firm commitment to ensure political stability and electoral transparency. During a pre-election conciliation mission to Abidjan from July 7 to 11, 2025, they declared the intention to support the electoral process in Cote d'Ivoire in a context characterized by moderate political tensions and major challenges for the country's future. Several prominent figures were present, including former Nigerian President Goodluck Jonathan, Beninese Thomas Boni Yayi, and former ECOWAS President Mohamed Ibn Chambers.
Algeria became on July 10, 2025, the 58th state to join the ASEAN Treaty of Mutual Cooperation, signed in Kuala Lumpur on the sidelines of the organization's 58th Foreign Ministers meeting. This act marks a new phase in Algeria's economic openness strategy, a rapprochement that could generate new commercial, technological, and geopolitical dynamics between Africa and Southeast Asia. The organization, which brings together 10 Southeast Asian countries representing more than 680 million inhabitants and a combined GDP of $3,066 billion in 2024. Details in this report with Marie-Raphaël Antolo.
On July 10, 2025, Algeria officially joined the Association of Southeast Asian Nations Treaty of Amity and Cooperation at the 58th Asian Foreign Ministers meeting in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. This treaty, created in 1976 and extended beyond the region in 2010, now has 57 signatory states. For the Algerian authorities, this diplomatic step goes far beyond symbolism. It opens the door to enhance cooperation in the economic, technological, and cultural fields and 10 Southeast Asian countries.
Today marks significant milestones in Algeria's relations with ASEAN. We are truly honored to join the community of nations that are party to the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, a community that gathers all those who see ASEAN as an example to be referred to.
According to experts, this accession goes beyond a purely bilateral framework. It has strategic significance for the entire African continent. It should enable the building of transcontinental value chains, access new markets, and strengthen Pan-African economic diplomacy. This geopolitical rapprochement could foster the creation of transcontinental value chains, boost trade, and offer Africa greater access to Southeast Asian markets, whose combined GDP was $3.66 trillion in 2024.
We take special pride in sharing with all ASEAN member states a steadfast commitment to the principles of the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation.
Algeria is seeking to diversify its economy, historically dominated by hydrocarbons, by focusing on agribusiness, renewable energy, and technology. With an estimated gross domestic product of $264 billion in 2025, Algeria is aiming for an additional 2 to 5% boost in certain sectors thanks to Asian investment and technology transfers. Industrial cooperation with Malaysia, particularly in solar energy, has already been underway since 2024, reflecting a strong commitment to build a more resilient, competitive Algerian economy connected to global markets.
Algeria and Uruguay's accessions to the TAC will pave the way for deeper cooperation and enhanced understanding between ASEAN and both regions. As chair of ASEAN, Malaysia reaffirms its unwavering commitment to advancing ASEAN's outward-looking approach and fostering partnerships built on trust, inclusivity, and mutual benefit.
However, experts point out that this membership will force Algeria to adapt to certain Asian norms, notably by adjusting its diplomacy to the regional political culture, strengthening its logistical and economic capacities in the region, and maintaining geopolitical neutrality in this strategic region. Furthermore, this membership offers Algeria an opening to new markets and will allow it to export more liquefied natural gas, crude oil, as well as ammonia or urea-based fertilizers to highly industrialized countries or those in energy transition such as Thailand, Vietnam, the Philippines, and Malaysia.
The Central African Economic Forum will be held from the 23rd to the 25th of July 2025 in Yaoundé, Cameroon. Under the theme Investment and SME Financing in Central Africa, this regional and international event will bring together political, economic, and financial players to discuss financing and regional integration opportunities. The third edition will focus on the development of SMEs and the industrialization of regional value chains in a continental context conducive to innovation and cooperation. From the 16th to the 19th of September 2025, the headquarters of the African Union Commission in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia, will be the venue for the 5th Pan-African Post-Harvest Congress and Exhibition. This major event will bring together decision makers, industrialists, researchers, and players in the agricultural sector around the critical issues of post-harvest management and food security. Organized as a showcase for the continent's innovations, the Congress offers companies and organizations the opportunity to present their products, technologies, and services to a strategic audience from Africa and beyond. On October 23 and 24, 2025, heads of state, investors, and development institutions will meet in Angola to unlock major funding for the continent's roads, electricity grids, ports, and digital infrastructure. At the initiative of the African Union and under the impetus of President João Lourenço, the event aims to address a deficit estimated at over $100 billion a year. The summit aims to unlock the financing needed to build a single electricity market by 2040 through initiatives such as PIDA and the CMP.
A trained engineer, financial strategist, and infrastructure builder, Michael Ballo III is the face of PAPS, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System. Thanks to him, 17 African countries are already interconnected by a single platform that enables instant cross-border payments in local currencies. His ambition: break dependence on the dollar, promote intra-African trade, and lay the foundations for African monetary sovereignty, a discrete but vital project. Who is Michael Ballo? Answers with Sarah Yemele.
Under the leadership of Mike Ogbalu III, the Pan-African Payment and Settlement System (PAPS) is emerging as a strategic lever for the continent's economic transformation. Launched in 2022 by Afreximbank in partnership with the African Union and the AfCFTA Secretary, this innovative mechanism enables instant cross-border payments in local currencies, thereby reducing Africa's dependence on dollars and the euro. Operational in 17 countries, PAPS now connects 15 central banks, more than 115 commercial banks, and 14 payment exchanges, paving the way for seamless intra-African trade.
And so far, we have built a world-class payment infrastructure, which has been able to bring together a number of people within the payments ecosystem, from central banks to commercial banks to fintechs, and therefore integrating them together such that a payment can originate from one account somewhere in Africa and terminate in another account, and it's able to do that in no more than 120 seconds.
The figures speak for themselves. Africa could save more than $5 billion each year by reducing transaction costs. By the end of 2025, 500 million banks accounts in 30 countries should be connected. PAPS also relies on artificial intelligence to combat money laundering, a measure of confidence for regulators.
We have 150 commercial banks that have connected into PAPS, which brings together about 500 million bank accounts connected onto the same platform. Now, we have now started opening up also for fintechs and other people in the payments ecosystem to integrate into our platform. That means that you can now have interoperability between accounts and wallets.
For Mike Ogbalu, however, it is more than just a technical reform. It's a concrete step towards Africa's economic sovereignty. He is also spearheading the launch of the Africa Currency Marketplace, a platform that matches Africa currencies in real time without conversion abroad. One more tool for building a connected, efficient Africa and in control of its own currency.
Once everybody is fully on board, what you'll see is that it becomes very easy to make payments between individuals. Businesses are able to do their trade and do it in record time, okay? And even governments, because one of the things we are seeing now is that a number of governments actually leverage PAPS to make payments to their embassies in the different countries. So you're going to see how payments is able to accelerate trade, improve on economic activities, and therefore make Africa even more prosperous.
At the head of this financial revolution, Mike Ogbalu III embodies a new generation of Pan-African leaders, an electrical and electronic engineer with a master in business administration from the Lagos Business School and a member of the International Academy of Cards and Payments. He has more than 15 years' experience in commercial and retail banking, as well as a solid expertise in payment infrastructure.
Nigel Cartons on this edition of the African Union Journal, prepared for you by the entire editorial team. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. You can find latest updates in Africa on our website, africa24tv.com, and on the app, MyAfrica24. On Africa 24 English, the African Union Journal is presented to you by Afreximbank.